Welcome, Rabbi Say, to a Chazara Shiur on Sugיא Lamed Gimel. Sugיא Lamed Gimel is like a breath of fresh air compared to Sugיא Lamed Beis. It's a lot easier. But we're still talking about the same, similar topics, still in continuation from a Mishnah, similar to Shmarim, similar to sediments. But here we're talking about Pekatim. Pekatim is similar to Shmarim. What is Pekatim? So Shmarim is like a general term for anything any pieces that fall to the bottom of a barrel of oil. Pekatim are like the fine pieces of the peel or the pit of the olive that actually float to the top of the barrel. Okay? So now, our Gemara talks about Pekatim. We learned the Braisa. Tano, we learned the Braisa. That the din between a balabayas and a shomer, and the din between a moicher and a lekeach, a buyer and seller, is the same in regard to Pekatim. Frag the Gemara, okay, fine, very nice, but what din are we talking about? So the Gemara attempts to say what the din may be that is the same. I have a thought, maybe it means that the same way when a buyer buys oil, he's buying 10 loig of oil, let's say, he is going to buy without these pekatim, without these dregs in English. Okay, so the same thing. When a shomer gives back oil to a balabayas, he should not give back, like in the case of our Mishnah where he mixed it in to all of his barrels, he should give back 10 loig pure without dregs at the top. Frag the Gemara, 1 second, that can't be. Because if the shomer took the balabayas' oil, 10 loig of oil, and now part of it is dregs, the shomer could say to the balabayas, sir, what am I going to do with your dregs? Like, this is your dregs, take it back. Why should I have it? Right? So that can't be. Okay, so the Gemara actually says, you know what it means? Just like by a shomer, when a shomer watches someone's oil and he gives it back, it is with dregs, like a part of it ends up being dregs. Same thing, a moicher and a lekeach, a buyer and seller, when he's selling it, he's allowed to sell it with dregs. Okay. So 1 second, frag the Gemara on that. 1 second. We learned a Braisa that says that the Holokeach accepts upon himself 1.5 loig of shmarim, but not Pekatim. This is similar to what Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah. Holokeach accepts upon himself that he's going to only, let's say if he's buying 10 loig of oil, he's only going to get 98.5%. But he's going to get 98.5% of liquid. He's not accepting on himself more for Pekatim. So it can't be that the Holokeach is accepting upon himself Pekatim. Just like a shomer and balabayas. And for the Gemara, you're right. This Braisa and this Braisa are talking about two different things. This Braisa, that the moicher and Holokeach, they do accept, the Holokeach does accept Pekatim, is when the Holokeach gives money in Tishrei time, when the olive oil is fresh, when they just crushed it, and everything is mixed in the barrel, like things didn't settle, and he's taking it, and the Holokeach is taking the oil in Nisan. When ready, now it's settled. So now he needs to accept, when he bought it, and the dregs were part of it. So now when he takes it, he needs to take dregs also. So the Holokeach bought the oil when it had dregs. So now he's accepting dregs. This Braisa, however, is talking about when the buyer gives money in Chodesh Nisan, when it's already separated, so he's giving money for 10 loig of pure oil, and he's taking the oil in Nisan. So the Holokeach bought the oil, the Holokeach bought the oil when it didn't have dregs. So now when he's taking the oil, he shouldn't take dregs. And that is the whole sugya, and now that takes us all the way down to the new Mishnah. Let's learn this Gemara inside. It's just this piece and that's it. Open up your Gemara to Daf Mem Amud Beis, closer to the bottom of the page. Tana. Here we are. Tana. We learned in a Braisa. Echad lekeach, both a buyer, ve'echad hamafkid, and both a depositor. When they take it back, when the buyer takes it, lipkatim, they have the same din when it comes to pekatim, when it comes to dregs. Frag the Gemara, my lipkatim. What does it mean that they have the same din for pekatim, for dregs? If you're going to tell me, ki hechi, just like The loikeach, that a buyer, loy mekabel pekatim, he doesn't accept pekatim. He wants pure oil. Mafkid nami, a depositor, also loy mekabel pekatim, does not accept any dregs. Frag the Gemara on that. That can't be. V'lei molei, let the shomer tell the balabayas, pik doch, your pekatim, my ovid lahu. What am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with your dregs? Ella rather, and for the Gemara, Ella rather, what does it mean? Ki hechi, just like the mafkid mekabel pekatim, that a depositor, when he takes back his oil, he takes back with dregs. Lekeach nami, also lekeach mekabel pekatim, he accepts with dregs. Frag the Gemara, umi mekabel lekeach pekatim, and is it true? Does a buyer accept pekatim? V'hatanya, we don't learn to the Braisa. Rabbi Yehuda says, Loi amru shemen. They didn't say, the Chacham didn't say shemen achor, that bad oil goes ela l'moicher bilvad. The bad oil only goes to the seller, meaning the seller needs to take the loss of any bad oil, including dregs. Why? Shaharei lekeach mekabel alav, because the buyer accepts upon himself loig gomech shmarim, 1.5 loig of shmarim per every 100. That means 1.5% of shmarim below pekatim, without any dregs. That means the buyer only accepts upon himself 1.5 loig for shmarim. He does not accept upon himself to lose anything else. So any other loss, anything else that goes bad, for example, pekatim, is the loss of the seller. So how can you say that a buyer accepts upon himself pekatim? And for the Gemara, loy kasha, it's not a kasha. This one over here, meaning the case, but the first price that we brought, that he does accept upon, that the buyer does accept pekatim, the yahiv leizuzeh, that he gives him money b'tishrei in tishrei, v'kashakil mineh, and he takes from him b'nisan in nisan. So when you're paying in tishrei, when everything is still mixed together, and then you're taking it in nisan, when everything's settled, when everything's separated, what do you take? Kimida the tishrei. You take like the measurement of tishrei. Meaning you take like what you paid for. You paid for oil together with dregs. But this brisa, the second brisa that we had, the yahiv that the buyer only accepts upon himself 1.5 loig of shmarim and nothing else. The yahiv leizuzeh b'nisan, when the buyer gives money to him, to the seller in nisan, the kashakil minei, and he takes the oil from him b'nisan in nisan, kimi the nisan, and he takes just like the measurement of nisan when things are separate. Rashi dibra maschel echad halekeach ve'echad hamafkid. Both a buyer and both a depositor, they take with the same din of pekatim. Lekeach, a buyer, umafkid, and a depositor. Echad hein, they are one. They are like one thing. They have the same din le'inyan pekatim, to the matter of pekatim, of dregs. Torah achas l'shneim, there's one Torah, meaning there's one law for both of them. Pekatim, what is pekatim? Zok Rashi. Psoiles, it's the bad stuff that come out, the rubbish. Hagarinim of the seeds. Hatzafin al pnei Hashem, and that float on the top of the oil. So it's like the fine pieces of peel. Of the seeds, of the pits. Loikeach mekabel pekatim, a buyer accepts upon himself pekatim. Im machar le'shemen stam, if the seller sells him plain oil, yekabel mimenu, he should accept from him shemen im pekatim, he should accept from him oil with pekatim. Lo yamru shemen achor ela l'maycher, they only said that bad oil goes to the seller, meaning the seller needs to take the loss of any bad oil. Lo amru, meaning the lo amru, they didn't say hefsid, that the loss achiras shemen of any oil that goes bad, ela l'maycher, only to the maycher. The maycher takes the loss, not the buyer. Because the buyer accepts upon himself lifchais, he accepts, according to our Mishnah, right? According to Rabbi Yehuda, he accepts upon himself to deduct from the amount that he's buying mimeya lugin, from 100 loig, for example, loig umechza, 1.5 loig machma shmarim, because 1.5 loig of it became shmarim. Lefichach, therefore, Tzarich litain loy shemen mezukak. Therefore, you need to give him, since the buyer is only accepting on himself to deduct 1.5 leg for shmarim. Therefore, lefichach tzarich litain loy shemen mezukak. Therefore, you need to give him pure oil below pekatim without pekatim. Ki mida the tishrei. You need to give him just like the measurement of tishrei. If he paid for it in tishrei, then you need to give him the measurement of tishrei. Zok Rashi, kashar adamim, like the gateway, like the going rate. The meaning of it is like the going rate, meaning the gateway. The literal translation is kashar adam, like the gateway of money, meaning like the going rate. Shel tishrei of tishrei. Shehu bezoil, which is cheap. Okay, when people buy fresh oil, which is all still mixed, you buy it a much cheaper price. Ustam shmarim, and the plain oil that's sold in tishrei achurim is bad, meaning it's all mixed with all these pieces. The kibel love pekatim, and someone that pays for it in tishrei accepts upon himself that he's going to get pekatim dregs. The shakal mine benisan b'shar shal nisan. But over here, the second b'rai says when he paid in nisan and he took it in nisan, he's taking like the going rate of nisan. Zakt Rashi biyoika, which is more expensive. He paid for it more expensively. The derech kol hashmanim. Because the way of all the oils, liyos mezukakin b'nisan, is to be pure in nisan, because already everything's settled, everything's separated. V'halokach stam, and someone who buys plain in nisan. V'hamoicher stam, and someone who sells plain in nisan. Ein moicher ela mezukak, he only sells pure oil. And with that we conclude until the Mishnah. This was a little bit of a harder Gemara, even though it was only one Amud. But I wish you a lot of atzlacha in this entire sugya. We should be zeichet Mashiach, take it from Yad Mamash.